Michigan State is a team built for a deep March Madness run, and it all starts with that defense. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, how on earth are we all doing? Just a few days ahead of March Madness, where our Michigan State Spartans will tip off at roughly 3 a.m. on Friday. I, for one, actually love how late that game is. Just get all the distractions of your everyday life out of the way and just focus on those Michigan State Spartans after dark. And hopefully the first of many games for this team. We're going to get into why this team can make a deep run this March here in the first segment, then answer a few mailbag questions, get into the Bryant Bulldogs a little bit here, and then a shout out to hockey and women's basketball at the very end. But let's get into it. Why can this two-seeded Michigan State team make a run? Well, guys, there's no shortage of ways that they can do it and reasons to believe that, hey, San Antonio could be within their sights. Not saying it's a walk in the park here, but guys, when you look at this right off the top, their defense, it fits that old cliche. Defense wins championships. At BartTorvik.com, they are top 5 nationally in adjusted defensive efficiency. More so, guys, when they hone in on three-point defense, they are holding their opponents to 27.9% from three-point land. That is the second best in the nation behind Tennessee. We've seen them sting some opposing teams with that perimeter defense, that guard defense, that wing defense, especially in the last 3-4 weeks of the season here for Michigan State. And that is where the strength lies with this defense. It's around the perimeter, okay? A very cherished part of the court during tournament time, both on offense and defensive ends of the court. You look at Marquette. Should Michigan State get through Bryant in the first round if Marquette wins their game? Okay, well, that's a very guard-oriented team. That is the strength of their offense in Michigan State. No shortage of opponents that have come into Breslin Center. Or if they go on the road visiting another team where their strength, hey, is guard offense. Okay, they've neutralized that with their defense with guys like Jaden Akins, Trey Holloman, Jeremy Fears, Jace Richardson, Frankie Fiddler, Cohen Carr. Why don't you get out there a little bit? You'll like the defense here for Michigan State. Now, New Mexico, should they be the second-round opponent? Again, knock on wood. If Michigan State wins, yeah, they're like an average shooting team. They're a little more lengthy than you'd get from Marquette, but still, with the draw and the other team's strengths right off the bat, I like Michigan State's defense, and I don't see any reason how you couldn't after the sample size that they've put out so far this season. And just to go along with the cliches, you need defense to win a championship or whatever every single suburban dad has said since the dawn of time. It's also often followed up with rebounding here. And man, Michigan State, do they have some dogs on the glass. Guys, they've just been out-rebounded twice this entire season. One of those times was very early on in the year against Kansas. They've ended the year top 35 in defensive rebounding percentage and top 10 in offensive rebounding. Okay, they're tied for the second highest rebound margin amongst tournament teams. St. Mary's is first, and they are tied with Texas A&M at a +9 rebounding margin. It was a shining example, really. Not too long ago against Oregon, you can see why rebounding matters in the game of basketball, specifically on the offensive side of the glass, something that Michigan State has done so well this entire season, because that first half in the Big Ten tournament game against Oregon, both teams playing really well, playing locked tight on defense. And Michigan State is going into halftime up 10 points, I believe it was, maybe 12 points, whatever it was. The reason they were able to do that, 7 offensive rebounds, 13 second chance points. Sometimes your best offense, well, it's just a second chance at the hoop, and Michigan State has done a fantastic job at that so far this season. Will it slow down in March? I don't have any reason to believe that it will. Let me knock on wood one more time. We're very superstitious on this show. For good reason. We've jinxed a lot in the history of this program. Guys, what else do we know about this team that we absolutely love? How about the bench? Yeah, the starters are fine. They're pretty good, actually, especially with Jace Richardson in the starting lineup. But how about that bench averaging 34.06 points per game? That is 4th most amongst tournament teams. And it's not just, the elementary stat of, hey, they score 34 points a game. Woo, nice. No, that is great. But when you take a look at who is actually on this bench, like Trey Holloman, that's fantastic. I mean, both what he offers on defense, which we just talked about, but that's your backup point guard, a junior with a lot of experience, who can shoot the mid-range, shoot the three, really good passer too. Like, that is your quote-unquote backup guard if Jeremy Fears isn't having his best that game, which we have seen in the last month. Fears not have it all completely, and then Trey Holloman takes over the starter share of the minutes in the second half. Great plan B to turn to. You also have Carson Cooper, who has been playing as well as he's ever had in East Lansing in the last month. You know, he's not going to show up on a first-team All-Big Ten list for his offense by any stretch of the imagination, but he rebounds, and he is getting really good at defense too. Whereas the rest of the front court for Michigan State, yes, Zapala, solid enough a defender, although he might be getting phased out here just a tad. I mean, Jackson Kohler works his tail off, especially on the boards, still physically undersized. So you need someone to step up. That's Carson Cooper coming off the bench. And, oh, yeah, how about the most athletic guy in this whole tournament coming off the bench for you? Cohen Carr. Nasty dunker. Tenacious rebounder. Really just works his tail off on defense, too. So it's not just the 34 points. It's the cast that offers dynamic basketball on both ends of the court. And, hey, speaking of the bench, how about the guy that sits on the bench, Tom Izzo? If that's not a reason to believe in this team this March, you're either a hater or this is your first year watching basketball. He has 56 NCAA tournament wins, guys. He has 8 Final Fours. That is the most amongst active coaches and 5th all time. He has 10 Big Ten titles before this season. This year, he just notched number 11. But let's talk about every year before this one, when he's won 10 Big Ten titles. 6 times he has turned those into Final 4 seasons. Guys, one of those years that he didn't was when COVID shut it all down. So if you want to go into the alternate reality where that tournament's played out and you want to talk yourself into Michigan State being a Final Four team that season, who am I to tell you that you shouldn't? If you want to make that 7, fine, what have you. But when he wins in the Big Ten, when he's got a team that's cooking, more times than not, he makes it happen with a Final Four run in March. And this is my favorite March Madness stat about Tom Izzo. That's not true. I actually have about like 15 stats that are all tied for first place, but this is the flavor of the day right now. 23-8. 23-8 is his record in the second game of a tournament weekend. That's a little bit above 500. That shows that this man, with his system that he has in March, is better at preparing for basketball games than many other coaches that have done it before him. That is an extraordinary second game record. So, yeah, quick turnaround in the tournament. That could throw a lot of inexperienced teams off. Well, when you're Tom Izzo and you're doing this for the 27th straight year, you got the formula, you got the system, you know it works, and you've implemented it for 8 Final Four runs. Okay, I like that. So that's all the stuff that we knew throughout the entire season. Like the whole season, the bench, playing fine. Rebounding was awesome right off the bat. The defense, amazing right off the bat. And Tom Izzo, yeah, he didn't retire mid-year. We always knew that he was going to be here for March. But what new things have happened lately? What's giving us extra glimmers of hope as we get into March? Well, halfway through the season, especially when Michigan State had that little rut where they lost 3 games in a 4-game stretch, you're thinking, well, they don't have a guy. There's no alpha on this team. Sure, having a deep team is all fun and games, but oh boy, when you need someone to actually put the ball in the hoop in a dire situation, they don't have it. Oh, except they do now. It's Jace Richardson. Ever since he's been installed into the starting lineup back at that Oregon game, 17.3 points per game. We have just gushed about this kid here the last few weeks, and why haven't we? He's a 3-level scorer. He can shoot the 3, solid mid-range game. He finishes not just good for a true freshman in college basketball, but for any class, any experience level guy in basketball, finishes at the rim in superb fashion. He has great vision. He's an active rebounder. He's a plus defender. We found our guy. We found our alpha. And what we also like, that we did not like for most of this season, was the 3-point shooting, where by and large, up until like mid-February, Michigan State was humming at around like 27-28% from 3. And we were just waiting for them to turn it around, and not for no good reason. This team has shooters that have shown that they can actually be productive from 3-point land earlier in their career. Jaden Akins, for example, Frankie Fiddler. Trey Holloman also started kind of in a rut. And also their free throw shooting was top 10 in the nation for the longest time this season. Normally those two numbers kind of correlate somewhat, right? It just didn't happen until a few weeks ago. Guys, in their last 7 games, Michigan State shooting the three-point ball at 36%. That is certainly above average, and that's all that we were asking for. That's all that Tom Izzo was asking for, is just a decent three-point shooting team. They have it in their last 7 games. I understand, not the largest sample size, but things are trending up. And just for a bonus, guys, why to believe in this team? Yeah, let's talk about that free throws. Now, it hasn't been the top 5 that it was for most of the year, but still, they're shooting it at just a tick above 78%. That is 7th best amongst tournament teams. They also get to the line quite well. The best they've done, actually, in quite some time here in East Lansing. There's reason to believe, guys. We're going to talk more about Michigan State. Of course we are. But first, you need to talk your ears off about Factor. That is right, guys. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. Guys, you could do this over a commercial break this March Madness, so you can fuel your body without the hassle of cooking. Factor meals arrive fresh, never frozen, and with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week, you can customize your menu to fit your goals, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. And guys, they also just taste great. The Korean beef bowl, the creamy Parmesan chicken, some of my favorites. They taste homemade, but take zero effort. They also offer smoothies, snacks, breakfasts. Guys, go check out factormeals.com. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code factorpodcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Also, for all you tradesmen out there, get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. We're talking Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for that extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies in just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. All right, back into the mix here, talking glowingly about Michigan State, their tournament chances. And there is one more thing I do want to add that we can like as Michigan State fans. And I use that kind of with like a hesitant tone because, especially in this day and age in college basketball, in the tournament, I don't think there is such thing as like a great draw. You know, something that you're just so pumped about. You're already putting the Sharpie on the paper saying that this team will make the Final Four. I mean, double-digit seeds are as hot as ever, and it will stay like that, I think, until the rest of eternity or until they expand this tournament field to 120 teams, what have you. But, guys, there is something to be said that if you take the Torvik rankings, so like the metrics out there, and you add up the 7 and the 10 seeds, so you go over to Kansas and Arkansas, add their rankings together, UCLA, Utah State, add their rankings together, Michigan State in the second round, again, should they beat Bryant, I want to be very clear about that, it's the second highest total amongst all the 7-10 matchups this weekend coming up. They're right behind UCLA and Utah State. That's the only higher total. If you add up New Mexico and Marquette in their Torvik rankings, they score 71. So, and if you want to go beyond that, just go ahead and look at Iowa State, the 3 seed, if you really want to put the cart way in front of the horse. This is a Cyclone team that lost 4 of their last 7 games in the season. They actually just dropped the news right after the bracket was announced that Keyshawn Gilbert, their second leading scorer, is out for the tournament. Now, that's not to say that the Cyclones are going to be some walkover team. Like, they'll still be very strong, or if Ole Miss upsets them. Okay, Chris Beard, mighty fine coach. Michigan State saw that firsthand in 2019, how strong of a coach he was. So there's no such thing as a free path to a Final Four. But looking around, you can make a case that it could have been a lot harder for Michigan State. So on the point of that, not just to make this 30 minutes of, hey, why Michigan State's going to win the national title and beat every team by 70 points. No, let's talk, really quick reasons why Michigan State might get tripped up here in March. And I know that's not a conversation everyone wants to hear, especially if you're a Michigan State fan, which I would imagine you are listening to the show. But let's go back to a tweet. March 14th, 2023, a gentleman by the name of Ken Pomeroy who is basketball royalty. He tweeted this out. In the 64-team era, there have been 36 teams to enter the tournament as a 1 or 2 seed, like Michigan State, that weren't ranked in the preseason AP poll. Hey, like Michigan State. They have combined for 0 Final Fours, averaging fewer than 2 wins per tournament. He also adds, again, this is from 2 years ago, good luck to Purdue and Marquette, who beat Marquette in the second round that year. Hey, it's your Michigan State Spartans. That was a lot of fun. So that is a long way of saying that if you really surpass expectations like Michigan State has this year, going from unranked in the AP poll to now a top 2 seed in the tournament, it is there's no data that suggests that you will be going to a Final Four. Preseason expectations, it sounds silly because, well, you now have a 30-plus game sample size to adjust your expectations. Preseason expectations still hold something. It's a decent indicator of just how solid your roster is. And sometimes in March, it just comes down to as easy as that. How good are you on paper? Now, of course, it's never really truly that easy, but that's the long and short of it. So St. John's, Michigan State, both trying to be the first 1 or 2 seed, not ranked in the AP poll in the in the 64-team era to do it. How about that? Okay, we're going to try to get to some happier news here. Now, why else can Michigan State leave the tournament early? Really quick, I mean, I really like if they could just stop their scoring droughts, which is now like a daily tradition. Whenever they do play, they seem to have these 4 or 5 minute spans where they don't score. Could you also get a game where both Akins and Holloman are cold shooting the ball like they just were against Wisconsin? Yeah, of course you can. It's March Madness. But let's just start talking, hey, what if Michigan State does beat Bryant? What does that second game mean, especially for the nerves? Cohen Carr Rip-Through wrote in a mailbag question, Sheehan_sports. You can also hit us up at lockedonspartans@gmail.com. The question was, nervous about revenge storyline with Marquette if we make the round of 32. Now, right now, Marquette, they have a 2-point spread against New Mexico. They would be the slight presumed favorite to play Michigan State. And yeah, Marquette, they're certainly a team worth being concerned about. You can make a case to be concerned about any team, and we have on this show. I'm very worried. We'll talk about Bryant here in a little bit, but just to keep it with Marquette, like they are really good at turning teams over. They're also very good at not turning the ball over themselves. Like Cam Jones, Stevie Mitchell, those names might sound familiar because they played against Michigan State 2 years ago. They are still with Marquette. They are very experienced. They are very talented. So when we say early on, like, oh, Marquette, hey, they just got really good guards, Michigan State can shut them down. Like, it's not a foregone conclusion. Like, do I expect Michigan State to do well? Yeah, I would in this game. But man, 2 seniors like that have this much experience playing basketball and tournament basketball, that will be a tall task for Michigan State. They have 4 guys that average double figures. And also, whenever I've watched Marquette this year, which I'm not going to claim was like a whole lot, maybe 5-6 times, I am impressed with their big man. Ben Gold, he doesn't average double figures, so I don't know if he just knows that I'm watching him and he wants to impress the host of Locked On Spartans, but he plays good whenever I watch him. So they do have a strong starting 5 there over at Marquette. So certainly nothing to sneeze at over there. Again, guys, we're going to get into the Bryant Bulldogs, why we should, not just look over them as if us fans have anything to do with this game. But first, we need to talk everyone's ears off about FanDuel Sportsbook. Guys, March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Guys, right before I jumped on to record, I made my doomsday parlay because they got something cool. You know what? Take a team, and they have odds for how far they'll make it in the tournament. You can parlay those odds. The doomsday that I'm talking about is if Michigan State plays Michigan in the Elite Eight. If they matched up, I just put those 2 things in, it's plus 2175 on FanDuel. So if that game happens, I'm not going to be able to wake up the next day, regardless of the outcome. I might even be in jail if they win or lose. Who's to say? I'm going to get paid, though, if that matchup ever does unfold, thanks to FanDuel. Guys, so many great bets, props, futures out there at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long with FanDuel.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, more mailbag questions to come here, and we're going to focus on Michigan State's first opponent in March Madness here, of course. Way after dark. I can't wait for this game. I know I'm going to keep saying that throughout the week, but I am fired up at that tip-off time. Might be in the minority there, but nevertheless, guys, MSU Realist wrote in, is it possible that considering Bryant is lengthier overall and has no overwhelming post presence, that we could possibly see a Xavier Booker UNC type of game against them? I don't think so. I don't know how much Xavier Booker we will be seeing this tournament. Could this all come right in my face? Could it? Like, is there a world where he does play against Bryant? He does get more than 10 minutes. He does splash a few threes. He is a difference maker. Yeah, there is a world, I suppose. But, man, it's been a tough go at it the last few games for Xavier Booker. And you need your best 7-8 guys. Xavier Booker has not played like one of those top 7 or 8 guys. And I know that, hey, they're a little vertically challenged on Bryant, so maybe you get the tall guy out there. I don't think he offers enough rebounding the basketball to be that much of a difference maker. I think that you're better off with the 8-9 guys ahead of him to get it done. And also, like, Bryant's roster does make me think of USC a little bit. Like, when you think of guys that, you know, are all like 6'5" or taller, but they don't really have a dominant center down low. Like, that does kind of mimic USC's roster. Xavier Booker, I think, only played 9 minutes in that game. Now, the big difference is I don't know if Bryant's going to be playing this matchup zone like USC did. Might be a really good idea for the Bulldogs, but we'll see what kind of defense they implement when we play on Friday night. But I don't expect a big Xavier Booker game. Now, watch him go for 18 points and 11 rebounds. And then personally call the show out after the game. I would love nothing more than that. Please prove me wrong, Xavier Booker. I'd love to see you start playing really well. But let's talk about Bryant here for a little bit, because it's one of the funnier things that we get to do as podcast hosts or as fans is like tell each other, hey, don't overlook the opponent, as if we have like anything to do with the game. But the point of all this is to kind of, maybe suggest that crazy things can happen in March Madness. And just because Michigan State is an 18-point favorite, just because KenPom, Torvik, EvanMia.com give Michigan State a 95% chance to win this game, it doesn't mean that, crazy things can't happen and there's not a realistic way that they maybe could be in hot water Friday. I don't know. When I look at Bryant, we just talked about the length, right? Like, no one is 6'1" or 6'2" on this team. They are all rangy, athletic, but that doesn't mean they're bad at rebounding. Just because they don't have a guy that's like 6'10" or 6'11" that cleans up the glass. No, they're scrappy everywhere else. They're top 150 nationally on defensive rebounding and top 60 on offense. And you want to go look at their American East Tournament Championship game against Maine? Ask Maine how their rebounding was. Bryant wiped the glass. 45-25 win. Now, do we expect Michigan State to still win this rebound margin? Yeah, I do. They only had one Big Ten game where they didn't win the rebounding margin. I'd be shocked if the American East team pops them. But still, it might not be as wide of a gap as we all think going into this game. Now, what else is concerning about Bryant? This is an older, experienced team. You look at their top 7 guys that they play, 6 of them are upperclassmen, either junior or senior. That 7th guy, he's a sophomore. Their top 2 guys have played Power 5 basketball before. They will not be under these lights thinking that they are too bright. Oh my God, I've never seen anything like this across the court from me. No. Earl Timberlake started his career at Miami, went to Memphis. Rafael Pinzon, he started his career at St. John's. 2 guys that were Power 5 players coming out of high school. Now, guys, fully understand. They're not still at their Power 5 schools for a reason. I don't think Bryant offered them an NIL package to pull them away from those schools. There's a reason they took a few steps down in their collegiate career, but still, physically, they can play Power 5 basketball, and they have also seen it. They are all experienced. They will not be unsettled by this moment. Now that I've put all that fear into your hearts, I will remind everyone, 18-point spread, 95% chance to win is what the computers tell you. And when you go to Torvik.com, BartTorvik.com, and you look at the top 150 teams that Bryant has faced, guys, they are 0-4 this season against those teams. They lost by 15 against St. Bonaventure earlier this year, 8 points against Chattanooga earlier this year. St. John's played them, beat them by 22. And then Grand Canyon, I don't know what happened before the game, but my goodness gracious, the Antelopes were fired up and they wanted Bulldog blood all over their jerseys. They beat them by 46 points. So, yeah, I don't expect that to happen on Friday. I think it'll be a little closer than 46 points, but they've kind of taken it on the chin whenever they do play someone in the top 150 in the nation. Zach wrote in, is it fair to say it's a disappointment if we don't beat them by double digits on Friday? I've said many times in the last few shows that when it gets to March, I turn into a coward. I have my tail between my legs right now. If you gave a contract, slid it in front of me and said, hey, sign right here, and Michigan State will win this game 70-69 on Friday, a 1-point win, it's going to be nasty. You're going to have 2 heart attacks during the game. I would still sign it. Like, I'm taking wins in the nastiest way the next few weeks. I do not care how it looks. But once you wake up, shake off those jittery beers from the night before and really start to think about the game, you would be a little disappointed if Michigan State didn't handle business. I think you would be a little concerned moving forward in the tournament, but no, I don't think it'd be a disappointment in the moment. I'd be relieved. I'd be happy, but maybe like around lunch that Saturday, you start to think, okay, well, that was weird last night. Wonder how they're going to turn that around. So I get it. I don't want to, just walk over a team, take them for granted, and say that we should pulverize them by 46. But yeah, Michigan State is a substantially better team than Bryant. Just please win. God, 2016 did irreversible damage on us. All right, Big Steve wrote in a good question. How would you spend 10 skill points on this MSU team? I think I would put all 10 on Aiken shooting, though I wonder what 10 more points on Carr's dunking ability would look like. He would put people in body bags if he was any better in dunking. Now, what I would do, I would split this up. I am going to stick with all shooting because, we've seen the defense. We've seen the rebounding. We've seen the free throw shooting. I'm going to go for 3-point shooting right now. Use 5 of those points on Aikens. We're going to need you to get better, more consistent, please, would be great. Holloman, we're going to boost you up by 3 points. He has been solid so far, but just a little roller coastery, as is, most college players. And then Jeremy Fears, look, I don't want to see him put up 6 3-point attempts in the same game, but when he does do his occasional 1 3-pointer a game, I'll give him 2 additional points. Just to, hey, maybe once every while, those go in, and you don't have to use the glass to actually do it. All right, guys, we're going to end the show talking MSU hockey and women's hoops just for a hot second because Susanna wrote in a question, can you do a shout-out to MSU hockey? Made it to the Big Ten Hockey Championship back-to-back years. Susanna, we absolutely can, and sorry it's been a little quiet on the hockey front. God, basketball just takes up so much air. Now, Michigan State hockey over the weekend, 1-0 win over Notre Dame. They sent Jeff Jackson into retirement. That is the coach of Notre Dame, who was a Michigan State grad. So that's a tough way to go out. Michigan State beats them 3 times in the last 3 weeks to end the Fighting Irish's Big Ten season. Now, Isaac Howard scored the lone goal early in the 3rd period. He has 4th most goals in the nation as number 1 ranked Michigan State. That's right. The latest coaches poll has our Spartans number 1. Now have a Big Ten tournament championship for the 2nd year in a row at Munn. This one will be against Ohio State this Saturday, 7:30, Big Ten Network. Now, so far this season, Michigan State, they're up 3-1 against Ohio State in the series. Now, we're also going to talk about women's basketball, too, because, they made the tournament. Of course, it's a basketball team that plays in East Lansing. Yeah, they certainly made the tournament in Robin Freilic's 2nd year. They will be playing Saturday, 4:30 on ESPN News against Harvard. Michigan State got the 7 seed. Harvard gets the 10 seed. And the 2 seed, well, that's North Carolina State. So that means with the women's basketball, the first 2 rounds are at home sites. They will be shipped down to Raleigh to hopefully play against the Wolfpack in the 2nd round. Now, Michigan State got a little turbulent at the end of the season. They went 4-6 in their last 10 games. We'll say this, 3 of those losses came against top 15 teams. One of them was a very close game against UCLA, who was in the top 5 at the time. And, so it's been for Michigan State to end the year, whereas Harvard, I believe they went 10-1 in their last 11 games going into the tournament. But Michigan State, look, still solid. They could still be a live dog in this tournament. They ended the Big Ten season with the 3rd highest scoring Big Ten offense at 79.5 points per game and was actually 3rd in average point differential. So when they were winning games, they were winning them by a lot. And when they were losing, not that big of a margin. So really strong step forward in Robin Freilic's 2nd year here in East Lansing. All right, guys, we will be back. Got a whole bunch of guests lined up. We got Connor George joining later this week. Big Ten, Ben Stevens joining. I'm working on a Bryant beat reporter guys. Like we're going to try to do our best here leading up to tip-off. Oh, I'm already starting to get nervous. This is not healthy. This is not good. Thanks a lot for making thanks for making Locked On Spartans your first listen of the day. Go make Locked On College Basketball your second listen, guys. You're all the best. Love you all.